Hello everybody, Pinstripe here. Welcome to my developer's commentary here for Pinstripe's mod version 2.0. In this episode, this of course being the first one, we're going to go through the first 5 missions and I'm just going to talk about my thought process going into each mission, both in terms of the concept and things that have been added and changed and basically everything that makes up this mod. Many of you will have seen I put out a poll a week ago asking if you guys would like to see a developer's commentary or a playthrough. 59% of you asked for a developer's commentary and 41% went with a playthrough. But the good news is that once this developer's commentary is done with, I will start a playthrough for Pinstripe's mod version 2.0. So you will be able to see both, but we're going to start off with all the juicy details for these first 5 missions. So this entire series will contain spoilers, so for those of you who don't want spoilers, who haven't played the mod yet, of course you can find a link to the mod itself in the description. Go ahead and download it, play it, let me know what you think. But starting off with mission 1, this mission was quite difficult to make different, or change I suppose, compared to version 1.0 of the mod. Because, you know, this is the introduction mission. This is what captures your attention when you start the mod. So I had to do something drastic, and that's why you start off with this mission being a solo mod. And that is reflected on the briefing screen, as it refers to you as, you know, a single soldier, the best and bravest soldier. So, yeah, it's up to you to make your way through and defeat all 4 enemy pigs. I mean, you do get a very healthy supply of both health crates and weapon crates. You can boost your health up to 200 if you collect all of them, if you take the time, because you, again, you know, you have 99 seconds. Interestingly, when I was sorting out the mission briefing screen images, I was told that mission 1's lower image, so the set of images that have the enemy pig where it says, you know, destroy any pig not wearing our team colors, those can't be changed because they are hard-coded, which makes sense given that they change in relation to whichever enemy team you end up facing on the very first mission. But the other image that I did change on that mission briefing screen that says take a look around for extra supplies, that was also quite difficult to make engaging because I can't currently add anything new into the level, so trying to find an angle in which to, again, attract your attention to what is going on in the mission, things to keep an eye out for. I mean, like I said, there's plenty of crates in this first mission, so it's really just a case of you gather up all the resources that are available to you, and then you take on the enemy. In normal mode, you face up against 2 grunts, an orderly and a gunner, and then of course in hard mode it gets pretty crazy when they all get upgraded to 2 gunners, a medic, and a bombardier. Now, one of the features that has been carried over from version 1.0 of this mod into 2 is the inclusion of randomized crates, which to many have been pretty kind to them so far. I've seen people playing this mod who have been given ×3 super airburst or ×3 airstrike on like mission 2 or 3, which is pretty insane because every time I did a run, I would get like ×1 pistol or ×2 rifle burst, you know, but they are completely randomized. But I do feel, and I have stated this before, given the inclusion of solo-only missions and the fact that you are facing up against more enemies, so yes, you may have heavier hitting weapons, but you are going to need them to last against all of these enemies. But I do feel they work better. Progressing on to mission 2 then, and the enemy now has 5 pigs, while the player only has 2. And this is where you need to decide what combo you're going to go with when you take on this mission. Normally you would have a full team of pigs, but it is completely different here because the enemy that you are facing is just filled to the brim with everything they need in relation to range, healing if necessary, and damage. You do also have the high ground, but that also comes in combination with which combo you choose in relation to the pigs you use on this mission. Do you go with the heavy weapons and an espionage? Do you go with engineer heavy weapons? Do you chuck in a medic in there so that you have healing as well? There are health crates on this map, there are pickups on this map as well, but you have to look out for the enemy gunner. They have an engineer as well, and an orderly, a grunt, and a scout hidden somewhere on the map. And in terms of context, again, because I can't really add anything new besides maybe trees, an extra windmill here and there if I really wanted to, the whole idea is based around a so-called village that you don't actually see because there aren't any buildings, But contextually from the mission briefing screen, that idea is sort of planted into your mind. And again, the extra enemy pigs kind of establishes that, you know, they've taken up those positions and it's your job to wipe them out and ensure that they don't cause an ambush to the rest of your army that are apparently further upriver. On to mission 3, which I called Trench Raid, the enemy now having 6 pigs, and it is back to a solo mission. So once again, you know, if you think about the map on mission 3, it's all about trenches, it's all about mobility, but you may not necessarily have to move that much, especially if you choose to go with, say, air heavy weapons on this mission. If you have a bazooka, you're going to do pretty well. That is, if your aim is good enough. There is going to be plenty of opportunities to pick up health, to pick up crates, and to hide if necessary, because you do have the option of a shelter. The bonus here is that Mission 3 did allow for a bit more creativity, given that it already included some tents, and seeing as on version 1.0 of this mod I had the player starting off in tents, I decided to swap it around so that, well, as the name implies for this mission Trench Raid, you are raiding enemy trenches and trying to kill them all and taking them by surprise, given the poor weather conditions as well. They're all sleeping in their shelters and their tents and stuff, and you have to go ahead and take them on. Here you'll face up against a medic, 2 sappers, a gunner and a grunt. The sappers were originally engineers, but I found that their range with the shrapnel grenades, if you got too close, was pretty powerful, and maybe that's the reason why the engineer class wasn't used that much in the single player campaign, because most of the time, like quite consistently, I found the engineers will get 50 damage from their shrapnels for some reason. I don't know why. They consistently are able to hit that, especially in hard mode. It's quite horrible. So they were bumped down to sappers, which means that when they automatically jump out of their tents, they won't actually be able to do anything until you get close enough. You do kind of have to deal with the grunt and the gunner that are quite far away, and you may find that the medic will jump out of the shelter and try and heal people wherever he can. But once again, like I said, there are shelters on your side of the map. There is a section that is blocked off by some signs as well, so you do kind of have to go a certain route. Oh, and the enemy scout is there as well. I forgot about him. He's positioned on the far side, but on the middle sort of high ground that overlooks where the player starts. Originally, that scout also was a sniper, but I had to bump him down because his sniper shots were proving to be a little bit too deadly, and it was proving to be perhaps a little bit too unfair for players. I mean, yeah, okay, there are 6 enemies, but you would immediately take damage, and it ended up being one of those things where you would just have to focus down the enemy sniper immediately in order to then take on everybody else. And if you think about how that affects hard mode as well, because again, that's what I'm always thinking about, if you have to focus down one pig and you can't focus on the gunner that's been upgraded to a bombardier, the grunt that's been upgraded to a gunner, and the 2 engineers who, again, if you get close to the scout's position, one of those engineers then has range to throw shrapnel grenades at you, it can get pretty hectic. So I had to bump him down to a scout, and yeah, that is mission 3. Mission 4 sees a continuation of the storyline up until this point. After the first 3 missions, the enemy have gotten word of your ruthlessness, and so they have put out a much bigger and heavier military response. So in this mission you still face up against 6 enemies as you did on the previous mission, but you now have 3 pigs on your team, which is the most that you will find out of all the missions on Hogshead. Of course, the biggest change for this mission is the fact that you have swapped places with the enemy starting positions, so you are now on the desert side of the map, which has less cover and is a little bit more tricky to manage. The enemy has a gunner, a surgeon, which is the highest rank we've seen so far in the campaign, a medic, which is positioned closest to you, a sapper, an engineer, and a scout. Mission 4 becomes the first mission to see a medal drop in this campaign, which you kind of have to wait a little bit for, but it does come down with some extra supplies. The other thing to note as well, I don't actually know why this happened, but you can't actually pick up any additional supplies if you go to the drop zone. If you go to the drop zone and try to use the drop zone, nothing will happen. You'll just walk straight through it. Why that happens, I have no idea. But the strange thing is that we obviously will get to it later on, but mission 16, the drop zone works there, but every other drop zone in the game doesn't work, and I have no idea why. Initially, the enemy sapper was meant to be an enemy engineer, but I had to bump him down because of the position between him and the enemy scout. The issue there was that if the player went to attack the engineer, then they would end up being targeted from the backside by either or of these two enemies. So if you went for the scout, then the engineer would have range on you. If you went for the engineer, then the scout would have range on you, and vice versa. And you may be thinking, well, I could handle both, that would be pretty easy, but the engineer would then be able to blast you away with his shrapnel grenades if you were going after the scout, or he could TNT you. I mean, he can do that anyway as a sapper, but the point is, I didn't want to have another engineer over there because the health pool was a little bit too much. I know that advanced players would be able to deal with both of those pigs at the same time, but I think for normal players it would be considered a little bit too much, especially considering the scout's position, as there is a ton of water everywhere, and the engineer's position as well. He would have been able to blast you into the water, and yeah, there was too many factors, and the easier point was to just bump him down, because then if you get to hard mode, could you imagine taking on a saboteur and a sniper at the same time with one pig? I don't think so.
What the hell is even that?
And last but not least, we have Mission 5. Now, this was another one that was a little bit tricky because of the map itself and how it was sculpted. It was quite limited in how much I could change in the visual department because, well, what do you have on this map? You have bridges, you have shelters, that's kind of it. So because of that, obviously I changed the position of the shelters. I kind of altered the bridges and put it down to the enemy engineers had been at work. And I guess the big wow factor for this mission concept was the inclusion of the enemy's commander. Now, you obviously don't see him when you initially start the mission because he's hiding in a shelter. But the mission briefing screen gives off the hint that he is injured, which, you know, implies that he won't have full health. And of course, when he does jump out, he has half health, which I feel like balances things out a little bit, considering that you are facing up against two scouts, a gunner, and an engineer. I also feel like it's balanced because this is Mission 5. You know, it's not like we're playing on Mission 15. Things have got to be kept to a minimum, and to have an ace in there so early on, there had to be a bit of a catch. Now, watching Caster and ADB play this mod, I found that maybe it was a little bit too easy, and maybe one of these scouts could have been a sniper, maybe the gunner could have been a bombardier, could have been a little bit tougher on the other enemies, because, you know, if I'm putting in a high-ranked class like a commando, a hero, or an ace, then I will balance that out usually in normal mode with one of the lower ranks of pigs, so a grunt, or the first rank of any of the classes, so sapper, scout, gunner, or an orderly. I will admit that I went maybe a little bit over the top with the amount of supply crates you can get from this mission. As the mission drags on, you will get crates dropped down, but they're kind of positioned in out-of-the-way places, so you need to go swimming for them in some cases. But yeah, there was maybe a little bit too many of them. So that is all the 5 missions. There isn't really much else to talk about in relation to them. I mean, I could ramble on about, you know, their spawn positions and stuff, but we'd be here for another 20 minutes. So one of the main things I want to talk about now is the sort of idea I have behind some of these missions. I know I've talked about the concepts, I've talked about the ranks and everything, but the main thing I wanted to do with these missions is to get the player to be looking at the map in a different way. So obviously, you know, you'll be dropping into areas of the map that you wouldn't really pay attention to or think of going to in the regular campaign. So for example, on Mission 5, there is an enemy scout positioned at the back corner of the map, where normally the player would be crossing over the bridge and running around that area, running past that area, and never really going to that area again. So yeah, it's just wanting the player to get out there, see the map in a different way, and explore these areas that they never really paid attention to in previous runs of the game. That point does, of course, relate to spawn positions as well, and the AI, because, well, if I decide to move their spawn locations to a different part of the map where they wouldn't normally be, it's something new for the player to see how the AI react in that area, and of course, depending on what class they happen to be.
Oh, hell no!
Overall though, guys, it's going to wrap it up for this developer's commentary for these first 5 missions here on Hogshead of Pinstripe's mod version 2.0. I hope you can join me for the next lot of missions, missions 6 to 10 on Australia. We will of course be skipping over mission 8 because it is exactly the same, but nevertheless, if you do have any questions regarding anything mentioned in this commentary and any questions you may have regarding the mod itself, then feel free to let me know in the comments as always. Let's get a discussion going like we always do, and in the meantime I will catch you guys later for the next one.
Right, you putrid porker. You should be proud of your hogs. I've given you, 5 additional promotion points to decorate them with. Are you listening to a word I say? Repeat after me. Minefields are very bad things to wander into. Now, press your button and we will be the richest nation in the world. Just imagine, limitless swill supplies until the end of all time. Oh, God, don't mess it up.